Hi there, welcome along to Outdoor Gear Chat. This is episode 23, which is just frankly ridiculous, Cathy. And we're talking about kit lists for Everest Basecamp is going to be the subject today. So I am joined as always by Cathy. Hiya.
Hi Wayne, how you doing?
Oh, awesome, thank you very much. Yeah, good. You?
Yeah, really cool. Actually, I'm really looking forward to this one because we have so many customers come into our shops who are just living their dream and booking trips to Everest Basecamp and needing to buy great kit so they can enjoy their trips. So I thought we'd do one specifically about this particular trip, and to help us along our way, we have Poole from Poole Mountaineering, and I'm going to spell that in a minute because it means you can Google the right person. But Poole runs trekking trips to trek into Everest Basecamp and has a huge experience. So to have him with us today just to talk about what people can expect and what sort of kit to use in general terms is going to be super beneficial. So Poole, welcome.
Good evening, how are you?
Yeah, great to have you here. And to find your website, people will need to type in Poole as in Paul, followed by Poole as in Poole, and it's Poole Mountaineering, isn't it?
That's correct. Yeah, you just type that in, you'll find me dead easily.
Yeah. Brilliant. So how many times have you been on the Everest or taken you up to base camp?
Well, that's a good question. I'm very not sure actually.
I thought we'd kick off with a tough one. Sorry.
Yeah, this is the one I can't answer.
Well, that was it. Just before we started recording, you were like, "Yeah, I've been to Morocco 20 times." And I thought, "Oh, he's got a real off." Oh no.
I think the first time I went there was about just over 20 years ago. So wow. Yeah, I've been on a few personal trips. Some of them have been quite long, and then been working out there for a number of occasions now. And I was going in a month's time, and normally it's like the last trip I did was literally the year before COVID, and then we're going to go in COVID, and we've had a team ready and we've been delaying, and then this is year 3 and now we're all ready to go. So we've had our flights changed numbers of times. It's been a bit carnage this year with flights, and so we've all been tentatively waiting for I suppose Qatar Air to drop a flight again. But so far, fingers crossed, we're on schedule and we're heading out the last week of October. So yeah, really looking forward to it.
Awesome. Oh, fingers crossed. Which actually sort of leads in nicely. I'm going to steal your first question as well, Wayne.
No.
In there. I'm stealing this one this evening. But you're off out at the end of October, and there's obviously definite times to go and visit and do this trek to get the absolute best weather. What kind of times of year are they?
So there's sort of 2 main times to the trekking season in Nepal. I mean, you sort of could go any time of the year, I suppose, but like the main ideal times are like April to May, and then sort of October and November. And you can slide it a little bit, like March through to the end of May. You could sort of go in end of September. But there's a couple of good reasons for those periods of time. And Nepal sort of has these seasons, and they're quite rigid, unlike us, and they can almost highlight the month and tell you what the weather's exactly going to, what day of the month it's actually going to change. And so around, if I took this time of year first, they've just coming out of the monsoon. And so you've just got this amazing time to go when the sky is really clear. So basically the monsoon's cleared the sky. And so you get these beautiful, crystal blue sky, sunny days. And so I think this, for me, is the perfect time to go. The clarity is just incredible. You can literally stand up on the high passes and some of the peaks, and you can see a long way. I mean, an awful long way. And I think, interestingly, Kathmandu is, it's kind of a developing city in the respect of it's, it's quite dirty and it's quite smoggy. But through COVID, when there was no one moving around, you could actually see the greater ranges, the Himalayas, totally from Kathmandu. There was these beautiful photographs put up, and it was just incredible. So October, November to me is the best time to go. April, May is still really good. They're dry. Both these seasons are dry. You just have a little bit more. I suppose the photographs aren't so good. There'll be less blue skies. I mean, it'll still be sunny, but there's a bit of a haze in the air, I guess. Unless you're going super high, but there's just a bit more of a haze. So for me, October, November is the perfect time to go.
Awesome. And we're not just talking, we're not just talking a week to 10 days worth of trekking, are we? Just for the numpties like me, I guess, who might be listening about or being inspired by a trip to Everest Base Camp for the first time. What's sort of involved in it? What, where do we go from and to? You mentioned Kathmandu there.
Yeah.
How long?
It's, I think, as long as you can go for, really. It's a hell of a way to go for a start. I mean, you jump on an international flight, it's like 7 hours to the Middle East, Turkey. Those are sort of the main transit sort of airports, I guess. And then there's another additional, I don't know, 6 hours, 5-6 hours or something on top. So you sort of arrive in Kathmandu sort of relatively jaded, I think. I think if you have a couple of weeks, 2 weeks would be a minimum. But really, after that flight, it's great to be able to have a day or two in Kathmandu just to sort of get over it. Because otherwise you sort of jump straight into a trek and you're sort of fairly tired just from the journeying period. And in that 2 week frame, so if you talk about Everest Base Camp as a sort of traditional route, it's quite a linear route. It's up and down the same way. And in terms of the altitude and so on, 2 weeks with international flights is quite tight. So if you sort of booked your holiday time and you fly on a Saturday and you come back on a Sunday, it is quite a tight window with the altitude. And I think also there's all these other factors as well, isn't it? It's a different culture, it's different food. I mean, landing in Kathmandu, if you haven't been to a developing country before, I mean, it is an eye opener. I mean, it's an incredible place, but it's very, very different to going to other places.
Yeah. And you understand the word culture shock when you arrive somewhere like that as well, don't you? You're like, wow, okay, then I do. Yeah.
I mean, I kind of always find it quite amusing because, Kathmandu has an international airport, but it's fairly old. I mean, if you sort of imagine four walls of red bricks, it's kind of what it's like. And somehow you sort of work your way through it and you sort of come out the other end. It's all fairly chaotic inside. It's not like a refined airport that perhaps we expect it to be. You wonder how your bags get to you, and you just sort of have to sit back and let it all happen. And somehow you come out of the airport, and then you're instantly exposed to Kathmandu. I mean, most international airports have around it, the infrastructure around it is well set up, good roads, nice buildings, and so on. Not Kathmandu. You're straight into the sort of the city and straight into the culture, and it's just brilliant. Like, it's absolutely brilliant. So I think you kind of need a bit of time to sort of soak yourself into all that before or after, but otherwise you miss a big part of the trek, I think.
Yeah, I love the bonkers of landing in Asian countries. It's just absolutely crazy. And one of the things, I haven't been to Kathmandu yet. I'm hoping to go next year. But one of the things that sort of I've seen with it, some of the airports like in Delhi, it's got more and more sterile in the sort of 25, 30 years since I first went. And it just detracts so much from the whole experience. But just being dropped straight in it, the noise, everything, is just fantastic.
Yeah, I kind of sort of talk about the meerkat thing. You just sort of like on your haunches,
looking around at everything that's going on. Yeah,
well, even though you might be like totally knackered, you're still like, what's going on?
Yeah, and that's everything's dead alert. Yeah, and start trying to soak everything. So I mean, we could talk about that for ages. I know, and I'd love to hear more about that. But onto the sort of the expedition side, the kitless side, if you will. So if I'm planning on going out there with yourself to spend a couple of weeks walking up to base camp, what's the sort of what would be the essentials? Where would I start? So
I think coming back to that time frame, I think 2 weeks is tight and there's no flex in the itinerary, in the respect of like if you need a bit of time to acclimatize further, so there's no flex in that. So it's not as if you can sort of go back down and come back up again. You're generally in Everest Base Camp, you're generally going to be flying into Lukla. Lukla is a line of sight airport. There's no radar, etc. So they basically need to be able to see the airport to be able to land and take off. And you do have clouds coming in, and sometimes you're unable to fly from Lukla. So if you're on a 2 week agenda, you can have sort of a logistical problem if you're not careful. So for me, I think to go all that way to look at a 3 week itinerary, which won't be a lot more in financial cost. There's a huge benefit to it. There really is, because like it gives you a better time to acclimatize to the altitude. So therefore, like you have more days in the itinerary. It gives you opportunities to rest appropriately, and then that's also potentially builds in the flex if you need to. So if you need, on those days that potentially like a rest day, we have the ability to sort of go back down and come back up again if we have to. And then additionally, at the end, there's a couple of days buffer, essentially, if in case the Lukla flight doesn't fly. So like today, if I was flying to Lukla, from Lukla back to Kathmandu to get my international flight tomorrow, which is what you would do on an international journey, if my flight doesn't go today, I'm sort of stuck. Whereas on a 3-week window, you know, we build a buffer in between the Lukla flight and your international flight. So there's lots of good benefits. And I think the altitude profile is like the key one. I mean, you kind of got to go there and enjoy it. I mean, you've got to go to the greater ranges. I sort of see the greater ranges as a pilgrimage. You know, if you have a passion for the mountains, you enjoy mountain walking, and then at some point you need to go and see these big hills. You know, there's a few of them around in the world, and you know, the Himalayas is one of them, and Everest Basecamp, the Khumbu, that sort of area is, you know, a classic place to sort of visit, because it's just, you know, however many times I've been there, it's just incredible. But the altitude profile, there's lots of guidance about it. And I foolishly, I think on one of my first trips as a personal trip, I had a race with the Sherpas. And so back day, yeah, didn't work out too well.
Yeah, bright idea. Yeah.
What's coming. But back in the day, you know, I was just, as an independent, you just sort of like left the tea house and then go high to the next village. You sort of needed to get there early, because the higher you go, there's less tea houses, there's less beds. It's just, you know, it's kind of simple maths. And so you needed to get there relatively early to secure yourself a bed. Otherwise, you just couldn't get any higher. So there was one particular place where I was like, I have to go at sunrise, and I have to like get ahead of the Sherpas. There was no mobile phones. These days, the Sherpas phone ahead and stuff. So they didn't have them then. So it literally was, you know, at sunrise, the Sherpas would be legging out the door to go to the next village to go and get the beds. And I was like, right, I'm having you. I'm on your tails. And then I legged it up, and it was up to about 5,000 meters, and I was fine, got there relatively all right, and did all right with the Sherpas, but got bed. And then like in the afternoon, oh boy, I got absolutely destroyed. I was basically like horizontal, like pounding headache, and essentially I'd just gone too fast. And I was really lucky with some strong painkillers and some rest, and then I had to descend the next day. But my lesson was learned, basically, you know. If you sort of like,
you can't mess with it, can you? It's like a proverbial baseball bat around the head.
Yeah. I mean, like, you can have as many painkillers as you want and much fluid as you want, but ultimately it's not going to go away. So
No. So if you were heading out, I mean, the altitude, obviously you're going up to sort of 5,300 meters, aren't you? So there's a lot to take into account there. So you want your kit, probably not wanting to carry a huge amount, particularly if you're working with Sherpas. You're probably just wanting to carry a day pack, I would imagine.
Yeah.
So what kind of size rucksack would folks be thinking about taking if they're going on an organised trip?
Yeah, I think if on an organised trip, you don't really need a great deal. I mean, you just need sort of like a 35 litre rucksack. I think it's interesting for me. I've seen lots of different brands over the recent years where you have a 30 litre rucksack and you just sort of go between them, and they're all like radically quite different in capacity.
There's no industrial norm for sizing a rucksack.
No. So I think you just need like a good day pack that you sort of use in the UK mountains. You don't really need a great deal. It just basically essentially have like your sort of sun protection, which I'll sort of mention a bit later on. You need like your warm kit, so like a warm jacket, your fluids, any snacks for day, your camera, personal medication. Those are sort of the key things, really. So you don't really need a big bag. I mean, if you're on a supported trip, then your porters are there to help you, and they're there. They're there keen. Everyone's up for the same thing, and it's about reaching your objective and getting you safely back off the mountain. And so it's like a team effort. It's never an individual thing. It's a big team effort. And so the porters are well up for it. I mean, absolutely well up for like helping you, and the help they offer is by carrying your sort of main baggage, I suppose, your sleeping bag and all your spare clothes, etc. So a 30 litre bag is 35, something like that. Absolutely fine. I think the temptation is if you go bigger, then you just put more stuff in.
You just fill it, don't you?
Yeah.
And you know, every gain you can have on altitude is really important. So the less kit you can carry will help.
Yeah, and the hydration side of things is critical to helping your body cope and make all those extra red blood cells that you need at altitude as well.
Yeah,
So
totally.
that is absolutely key, and purifying that water as well. So you don't
Yeah,
end up with the nasties.
I think Kathmandu is an interesting place, and then as soon as you get in the hills, like things are really good. You know, the hygiene aspect is pretty decent, to be fair. I've certainly been ill in the valleys a few times, like in Kathmandu, but I've never been ill or had anyone in the team or been around anyone who's been ill in the hills. They're generally good at the food prep, as in like, you know, being hygienic about it. They use a lot of like sterilized water in different ways. They provide you with lots of fluid as well. I think that's really good because like you can purchase as much hot water as you want and hot fluids as you want. But in terms of filling up your water bottle, every tea house will offer you free water. And so like this idea of fluid and altitude, it's really important that you sort of like make those gains during the day to sort of like take on as much as you can, like before and after. I mean, you sort of like end up having to like have a disturbed sleep in some respects because like your body is higher, so it's just naturally dehydrating, and then when you go to sleep at night, you're naturally dehydrating, and so you sort of need to keep drinking. And so I'm getting a bit older as well, so naturally
you just need to go wee everywhere
a bit more. But like I find myself like having like to get up like I don't know 2, 3, 4 times in a night, and it's a pain in the ass because obviously it's quite cold. You got to get out of a nice warm sleeping bag, and then you've got to like do the sort of like the 3 a.m. shuffle down to the toilet, but that's good. That's a good thing. And so this water idea of, but it's just that sort of inconvenience in the middle of the night, and then obviously your roommate does it as well, and and then the rest of the tea house does it, and it's all a bit loud and clunky.
So you were talking about the stuff that your size of your rucksack there, and one of the questions I had is, and looking on your website as well, about different weather conditions. Is it do you have to pack for every season, or is it relatively like you're saying relatively stable in those windows?
Yeah, so both of those sort of main trekking seasons are dry. You know, you could always have an occasional shower. I honestly can't remember the last time I had any rain there. Within the actual mountain trekking, I've definitely had some like light snow, like late November. So you're coming into the winter. So late November we've been like leaving, and there's been some light snow high up. But that's the only time I've ever had moisture. I mean, generally, like down in the lower valleys, you sort of arrive in Lukla, and it's about 2,800 meters, and then you drop down into the valley towards Pakading. Is probably the classic sort of village to go and stay at, which is a little bit lower, 2,600, and it's really hot. It's a forested area, and it's a really hot area. So like for a couple of days, it's sort of a bit strange because you sort of prepare yourself these big mountains, and as you jump out of the aircraft, you are surrounded, or you started to be surrounded by these big towering peaks, which are all snow-capped, etc. So you naturally think it's going to be a bit chilly, but you know, you're super high, UV is like getting to you quicker, and down in the forest, it just captures the sun. It really captures it and captures the heat. So it's like super hot down there. Like a t-shirt is all you need. And then as you ascend, sort of like go past about 3,500 meters, the forest change. You kind of get more of this like dry, open tundra, alpine tundra almost. And there it changes. Everything changes. So you know, the temperature, you'll feel the temperature difference because you're not really being sheltered by the forest anymore. And there's definitely like often like sort of the winds coming off the mountain. You know, not super strong, but they definitely have a bit of a bite in the air. So I generally have got like, you know, kit sort of does a bit of both. So a bit of hot weather, and then like sort of
a bit of wind protection maybe, but windproof.
Warm and windy protection basically is what I'm after.
And so would you recommend folks take a full set of waterproofs just to sort of protect from the cold at night? Because obviously it does get, as you get higher, it starts getting very, very cold at night.
Yeah, so it's always an interesting one. I do have like a summer weight pair of waterproofs, trousers and top. But they're just like a summer weight. They're not like sort of Scottish winter hardcore sort of layerings. They're just summer, and I've only ever worn the jacket, but only on occasions. So I've never worn the trousers, but I'm sort of like, I suppose it's like I'm be pushing my luck. I suppose if I leave them out, I'm going to need them, aren't I? So I do sort of just take them now as like my like good luck charm. And I do sort of advise people to have like a light windproof, waterproof sort of shell layer. primarily for like the wind, in case like people run a bit cold, and then that'll be really sensible. But beyond that, I'm not expecting it to rain. I'm expecting it to be nice.
Yeah,
that's part of the reason I go, actually.
On every trip. Amazing.
Yeah, sign me up. Yeah, I'm in on that as well. So, and then that's made me just think of like in differently, I guess, as far as footwear goes as well. Because one of the obvious questions for us is, well, do I need to wear boots? Do they need to be crampon compatible, or what sort of footwear do I need to be taking over there with me?
Yeah, so I suppose like ultimately it will depend on your objective. So, there's a few technical walking peaks, for example, which do require like a mountaineering boot and a mountaineering compatible crampon, just for the last few days. But generally speaking, anything trekking wise, you just need something super flexible and super comfy. I mean, I only go out with like a sort of summer B1 type boot. So, and I think the most important thing is around all of this is that it's just comfy.
Yeah.
Because like, I've worn approach shoes sometimes. The path is really well maintained, and so I've just worn approach shoes, and so the daily distances aren't particularly huge. I mean, 4 to 6K sometimes. Some of the bigger days, and there's only a couple of them generally in an itinerary, might be about 10 to 14K. But generally, like, because of the altitude, you just can't keep putting like big distances in.
Yeah.
And so the distances are quite short, but cumulatively over a 2 or 3 week period, you do actually travel some distance. And so this comfort thing is the most important thing. So super comfy. I think like sort of that B2 type boot just for a trek really is overkill. And your feet will swell to the altitude. You're gonna get foot sores if you're not careful. So you're just looking for something that is super comfy and allows your foot to like walk naturally. And in terms of crampons, I was just going to say on that, because there's 1 or 2 places you can go over high passes and there's a bit of snow and ice on them, and I just use micro spikes. So just take some like pavement crampons, micro spikes, and away you go. And if you forget, in Namche Bazaar, which is like sort of a main focal point, I suppose, it's almost like the Clanberis of the area. You can get everything, and they've even got homemade crampons, which is just absolutely hilarious. They're fair play, they're pretty good. I mean, they cost a couple of quid and they'll probably break. Hopefully not on the snow and ice, but they do tend to break.
But they'll last long enough.
Homemade fangs and homemade chains putting all together. It's very amusing. But yeah, so if you forget, you can get those. Or actually these days you can actually, last time I was there, you can actually get all of the branded micro spikes. It's incredible. And they don't look fake either, because a lot of stuff comes across the border, and a lot of it's a bit fake. But from what I can see, they look pretty decent. So yeah, so comfy boots, micro spikes, amazing.
And I guess that's the thing, isn't it? That's what I always get into my head is, and from back in my walking days, as I call them, so wearing big heavy boots and just being miserable by the end of the day because you've been wearing big heavy boots. Whereas now I wear, like you say, I just wear lightweight trail shoes all the time. And it's a far more pleasant experience, just even for me with a bit of experience. Yeah.
I think if you're going for those sort of more technical peaks where you need those winter mountaineering boots, then most people will try and walk in a pair of approach shoes into it. So you've got that comfort. It all comes down to packing though, because like luckily there's quite strict sort of weight restrictions on it all. So there's weight restrictions on 2 things: Lukla flight and porters. So on the Lukla flight, your hand luggage and your hold luggage, so essentially your day rucksack and like your holdall, has to be 15 kilograms. So that is quite a challenge.
It's tight, isn't it? Wow.
It is. I mean, if you start putting a chunky sleeping bag in and a mountaineering boot and a big crampon, I mean, you're taking up a lot of weight really quickly.
Yeah, suddenly all that's gone.
I mean, so you sort of get on the flight wearing a lot of stuff, I suppose.
Waddling on.
And then quickly like drowning sweat and trying to like asphyxiate the other side.
Ditching layers as you're on the plane. Brilliant. Well, and that is sort of comes back, following that line of questioning around sort of equipment and kit that I'm wearing. Is a down jacket an essential piece of kit? That sort of that sort of warmth. Is that something that we need?
I think you definitely need a decent warm jacket. So clearly, obviously, temperature drops as you gain height, but the evenings are really cold. So the days, like I say, down low are hot, and then as you go up high, you still have this like heat, and you can still get this cold air coming off, but it's dry. The whole air is dry. It's very different to sort of a European type temperature of hot and cold. And so even though it might feel a bit chilly, it definitely feels different. So I don't actually often walk in like sort of a really warm jacket. I don't have the need to. It's only if it becomes overcast and the sun sort of gets hidden by the clouds, then yeah, the temperature difference is quite noticeable. I think like nighttime is probably where jackets are really good. I mean, if you're in tea houses and you have like this communal area where you're around a wood burner, which is fueled by yak dung, which is you come home, when you come back to the UK, you realise it when you unpack your bag in the lounge, and you're like, oh my god, what is that?
Oh, it's impregnated everything.
I've had a few trips where I've done that unpacked when I've got home, thinking, everything's pretty clean, and then you're unpacking the home environment and think, oh, maybe I'll do this in the garage.
You adjust, don't you? Of course you do, but when you get home, it's like, ooh, that's a bit ripe. But in the evenings, I mean, it's just brilliant to go outside the tea houses. I mean, there's no light pollution, and it's one of the few places, I think, apart from a desert, where it's just incredible. But like, it's one of the few places where you can get away. I mean, last time we saw the Milky Way, it just followed us. We just happened to be in the right place at the right time, and you could see it like probably the most clearest I've ever seen it in my whole life, just by the naked eye. You didn't need cameras, and if you had a camera and you put it on a long exposure for like a minute, oh my god, you were getting like this world-class photograph of the Milky Way.
Wow. I thought you were going to say it didn't work. It's one of those where it's just for your eyes sort of thing, isn't it? But yeah.
It's where you need the warm jacket. Do you know what I mean? So, and I normally take a bit down, and I normally take a bit synthetic. So I normally have like a warm, in my day bag when I'm trekking, I normally have like a warm 60-gram sort of Primaloft type jacket. So it's like my warm jacket, and then sometimes when I'm a bit high, if it's a bit cloudy, and I've got something nice and warm to wear. And then I have a down jacket as well. Just sort of like a summer weight down jacket, nothing too heavy, and then I use that in the hut. And then if I wanted to go out and see the Milky Way for an hour or two, I might find myself like looking like that sort of snowman with like 2 jackets on, big and bulky. But it's probably worth thinking about what you do take, because your kit will take a hammering. I mean, there's always UV, you're much higher, there's lots of dust, you're sweating heavily in things. And so it's well worth thinking about what you take. And so I do tend to not go and purchase something new that's quite expensive and take my best thing out. I tend to take things out that, I've been wearing for a while, and I'm not too worried. I mean, I I sort of couldn't really shave the last time I was out there, and I like shaving, but I couldn't really shave. So I ended up with this like full-on beard thing going on, and
but like Wayne's.
I was doing my head in. It was absolutely like, I don't like them anyway. So the point was, I had this really nice jacket that I bought like a bit before the trip. So not only was it getting hammered by the UV and the dust and all my sweat, but the beard basically did in like the whole cuff around the neck, just
scratching it. It's really irritating, isn't it? Yeah,
it was pretty much like trash when I got back. I was like, oh wow, when are we doing that again? So it's definitely worth thinking about it. And then I quite often get things like the down specifically professionally cleaned afterwards, especially the sleep bag. So then you can use a liner as well, couldn't you? That helps.
Yeah. And you've just mentioned an important question as well. So because kit is so expensive, and if people don't have that sort of, is it possible to hire it? Is it possible is there businesses around that do that? Or?
Yeah, there is. There's plenty in Kathmandu that hire things. There's a couple of companies in the UK as well, which are worth looking into.
Rab have actually just started doing their own hire.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So clothing packs, tents, sleeping bags, the works. Yeah, if you go on their website and just plug in hire, or it'll probably pop up in the top toolbar. And they've got a huge amount of stuff on there. Yeah.
Fantastic. And a lot of these will do single items, or like the package for EBC, for example. But in Kathmandu, lots of things, everything's for sale, everything's for hire. Quite a bit is not necessarily genuine, but in terms of the cost and the functionality, brilliant. And I think, like I just said, if you're going to take your own kit out, then there's that hardship. It's going to get a bit of a beating. So just
indeed. And so, again, just on about conditions and a couple of questions along like UV and the sunlight and so on. You've mentioned like your personal sunscreen kit, and I'm intrigued, especially after we spoke to Barnaby from Julbo recently. It was absolutely amazing about about eye protection as well. So just a little bit on that, because I'm guessing, like you said, the higher you get up, the more prone we're going to be, particularly as pasty white skin as I've got.
Yeah, no, it's really important. I mean, I think a pair of sunglasses that you get at cheap 99p off a shop is just not good enough. I mean, the eyes are important. They sort of need to be a minimum category 3.
Yeah.
And so it's sort of this idea of like this visible light transmission and getting a darker tint and so on. Cat 4 is a little bit trickier now. It seems a lot of manufacturers don't do them because some countries it's illegal to wear them when they're driving and so on. But ultimately, like this sort of UVA, UVB, I think it's UVB, isn't it? It's the worst. So it's really worth investing in a good quality product and then protecting with an appropriate case as well, because I've probably sat on a few things.
Again, scratched and so on.
Yeah.
And it's a little detail, really. It's the detail. It's like the gap at the side of the sunglasses.
Yes.
Sometimes a pair of wraparounds is much better, or you could go retro and get those little leather like bits that cover up the sides, because the sun will come in and you will notice a difference. You'll be squinting a lot more. And then in addition to that is all these things like lotions and potions, and 50 would be ideal, minimum 30. Things like lips, lip seal with like sun protection. I've seen a lot of folk with really badly burnt lips. They've used lip seal, but there's no like sun protection in them. And then hats, sun hats. I personally sort of don't wear shorts because I just want like less of my white body out as possible. So it's just my face and my arms occasionally, but I don't wear shorts for that reason. And then like again, I've seen lots of people with like using walking poles, which are amazing, but they've forgotten to lotion and protect their wrists and their hands.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And I've seen some really nasty folk with like some pretty bad, I wouldn't say burns as such, but pretty swollen wrists, which undoubtedly would be very, very uncomfortable. And then like some moisturizer, it's not something you can kind of get showers now all the time. I mean, it's becoming more readily available and stuff. So like a lot of it is like sort of some sort of baby white wash, etc. But then you need to put that moisture back into your skin. So like having moisturizer or something, whatever is your preferred potion, and
Johnson's
having that
baby lotion wins every time.
Johnson's all the way.
I got severely burnt up inside my nose because I was on the glacier. And I hadn't put lotion up inside my nose, and because we were on snow for a couple of days, it burnt all up inside. So I ended up with basically looking like I got some kind of horrendous skin disease all around in a big disc around my nose and across my top lip. And I thought, oh, that's it. That's gonna scar. It just looks so horrendous. And every night it stung like hell, but I put Johnson's baby lotion, that's all I had, and I was just like lathering it on each night, like wiping the tears out of my eyes. But it works a treat.
It's really hard, isn't it? It's so hard. I mean, I found I took all these things out last time and stuff, and I took out dry shampoo last time as well, bizarrely. Actually, it was really useful. First time ever for me. Not that I've got much hair either, but
it's for the chest.
The legs.
And so you just mentioned trekking poles as well. Those are an essential, pretty much. Would you say at the moment? Now,
I agree, Wayne. I think they're really important. I mean, 4 legs are better than 2 for a start.
Absolutely, my top phrase. That one, love that. Yeah.
But I mean, you've just got EBC is like an incredible amount of ascent and descent. It really is, and you're just going to get your knees really tired much quicker. And so these poles are hugely beneficial in reducing the impact. But I think I'm just sort of like throwing it back your way a little bit. I think it's so important that you sort of pop into a shop and you get the right size. And then you go out in the UK and you learn how to use them properly, for ascent and descent and so on.
The walking poles have a lot of bizarre random uses as well, because certainly as a woman, it's not easy to go to the toilet all the time in an area where there's no cover. So they're quite handy to sort of just drape a jacket over and create some privacy.
That's a good idea. I like that.
And I've actually had to use them for personal defense before as well. I am a big advocate of the trekking pole.
No, I'm a huge fan. I don't really use them in the UK, to be fair. I just don't. But like, yeah, overseas over there, 100% starts out the aircraft, put them on straight away, and off we go.
Yeah.
But don't forget to suntan lotion your wrist, because
Your wrist, yeah. It's a dead interesting one, isn't it? Because I've seen loads of people on various like national 3-peak attempts recently where they've only had one pole as well, and like, it's like, no, take two, because like you said, then you've got 4 legs. It's like, one wasn't enough, or they've just literally gone to a shop, bought them, and never actually had any practice, so they don't know how to use them. Or one of the greatest bits, I think we might have mentioned it before, Cathy, is wrapping duct tape round part of your pole, because that comes in so handy.
Oh, yeah.
For all sorts of reasons, just having that rather than a whole great big chunky roll of the stuff in your pack. It was absolutely brilliant. So and gloves then, is that, do I need gloves for it? Is there, I always take a pair of like merino layer with me now, because they're absolutely fantastic. But is it something, do you want, would we take a set of Primer Loft gloves with us or something like that?
Yeah, I think so. I just have something, and nothing too bulky. I mean, if you're going up to EBC, it's 5,500 meters, and I know instantly you'll be thinking, oh, it's going to be super cold, and it is chilly, but it's not super cold. It's just all about this dry air. So for me, I do run cold, but I don't often wear a pair of gloves up there. It's only on those exceptional days where it's a bit more of a bite in the wind, and I just take something I prefer windproof, but like, a thin pair of Primaloft type, summery type gloves. I was just looking on your site earlier actually, and your Rab M14s are a bit techie, but just something small like that. It's got lots of dexterity. There's a windproof.
Like you said, packs down small, those sort. Yeah.
Because if you go, it's all about that weight. Go back to my flight. I've got 15K. I've got to really consider it. So just something like, I personally don't take just sort of a fleecy pair. I like a windproof membrane in there, basically.
Yeah, it makes a big difference keeping the wind out. But conversely, you need thick fluffy socks.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think like I tend to sort of go for like summer weight socks, where like I do run cold, but like I've never had my feet super cold, and even like that height, and even in a summer pair of like flexible boots. I mean, the boots I wear aren't sort of like the running type boots, if that makes sense. The sort of running trail shoes that got like an ankle support, where they are super thin. They are actually like summer B1 walking mountain type boots. But I've just a 3-season sock works really well for me. And I guess like if you're going higher or something like that, or you run perhaps a bit colder than, to me, I know it's hard to measure, but then like maybe have a single pair of warmer socks, for example, within your bag. That would make sense.
Yeah, nice for changing into in the tent. Well, I think Wayne, we're about out of time.
We are, unfortunately. Yeah. Thanks very much, Paul. That was absolutely fascinating. I think we could have talked for hours on that. So that was episode 23, kit lists for Everest Basecamp. I think that's going to be another that we're going to have to revisit and talk to you at greater length, I think, on some of that. But thank you. Yeah,
you're most welcome.
So Paul, your website, would you like to just remind people where they can go to learn more about your trips?
Yeah, brilliant, thanks. It's poolmountaineering.co.uk, and everything is on there, basically. Hopefully self-explanatory.
Brilliant.
I think it's great. Look, it's a great looking website. I've got to say, I was just having a quick look before we started recording. Yeah, fantastic.
Oh, he's shopping again. Again.
Yeah, always. Yeah.
Bit different to popping into Joe Brown's, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, of course you can pop into Joe Brown's to buy your finest trekking equipment, or you can pop into the Climber Shop in Ambleside. We have, of course, all of our range online at www.climbers-shop.com, and then of course there's heaps of extra information around all of the equipment that we sell on the Joe Brown Outdoor Academy, and that is www.joebrownoutdooracademy.com, where you can also find a link to Paul's business. So get shopping.